Hello, this is a short introduction and tutorial on how to use AlbumEasy to create your own custom stamp albums. AlbumEasy is completely free and can be downloaded from www.thestampweb.com. I have also included the link in the description below. AlbumEasy is currently available for both Windows and Linux, and it is hoped to have an Apple Mac version available sometime in the near future. Using AlbumEasy and the flexibility it offers for creating custom album pages, such as those currently displayed, you can design albums personalized to your collecting style rather than have pre-printed albums to dictate how you collect. Here we see a sample album page as produced by AlbumEasy. In addition to rectangular stamp boxes, AlbumEasy supports triangular and trapezium shapes, as well as round, oval and diamond shapes not shown here. Boxes may contain images, be filled in different colors, and have different colored borders and line styles, such as dotted, dashed, etc. AlbumEasy supports almost all international languages. For example, as shown here, Cyrillic, Hebrew, traditional Chinese. It also supports color for various page elements, such as the blue and crimson text or green horizontal line in this example. I should also mention that AlbumEasy places no restriction on page size. You can set the page to any size you like as long as your printer can handle it. At the time of recording this video, the current version of AlbumEasy is 4.0.1. This tutorial may rely on features that were not present in earlier versions, so if you wish to follow along, please ensure that you have 4.0.1 or newer installed. In addition to AlbumEasy, you will need a PDF file viewer, such as Adobe Acrobat, to view and print the albums you create. After installing AlbumEasy, double-click the icon on your desktop. The main window will open up, complete with a tip of the day dialog box offering a few useful hints. The main window consists of a button toolbar, an edit window complete with its own separate toolbar, and a status window. Comprehensive help is just a click away. To start out, let us open an existing example. Click the Open button. Browse to the AlbumEasy folder, which should have been created in your Documents folder when AlbumEasy was first installed. Inside it, you should find the Examples folder containing some sample albums. These illustrate various aspects of AlbumEasy and are well worth exploring to illustrate the capabilities of the program. For this exercise, however, I'm going to choose albumsample.txt. After the file has loaded, we ignore the color text in the edit window for now and focus only on the status window instead. The status window shows that an album file called albumsample.txt has been loaded. Loaded file, albumsample.txt, and that we need to press the Generate button to create the album. Notice that the View PDF button is disabled. After pressing Generate, the status is the View PDF button is enabled and the status is updated and reads, generating the album, successfully created albumsample.pdf. Now, if you have a PDF viewer installed, pressing the View PDF button should display the album that you have just created. And here it is. The page has margins. In this case, the left margin is wider than the right. It contains a border, a title, some text, and some stamp boxes. Second page contains further group of stamp boxes and some more text. But enough digressing. Let us get back to the real point of this tutorial, which is to show you how to create and generate your own custom stamp albums. Before proceeding, I am going to restore the size of the edit window and then shut down and restart AlbumEasy. Normally this would not be necessary, but for the purposes of this tutorial I want to start with a clean slate. AlbumEasy takes a non-graphical approach to generating stamp albums. This is different from the drag and drop editing model, so typical of many other graphical editing applications. Instead, AlbumEasy processes a text file containing a description of the album pages, which it then uses to generate a ready-to-print PDF file as output. An AlbumEasy text file is just a regular text file containing AlbumEasy commands. This file can be created using almost any text editor, such as, for example, Windows, Notepad, etc. As of version 4.0, AlbumEasy has included a built-in text editor. However, the user is free to continue to use any other text editor if they prefer. Moving on, for this tutorial I am going to create a Southern Rhodesia album. The album will start with the first Southern Rhodesia stamp set, the 1924 Admirals, the George V definitive issue. This set consists of 14 values but 15 actual stamps if we include the 1 penny coil stamp. There are essentially three ways of creating a new album text file. Firstly, one could do so from scratch using any text editor starting from a blank screen. Alternatively, one could copy an existing album text file. This is especially useful when creating albums that are similar to an existing album. However, the simplest method, and the one we are going to use in this tutorial, is by means of the album wizard, which is accessed from a button on the toolbar. The wizard provides a simple means of creating a new stamp album from scratch. All we need to do is fill in a few album-specific fields and then let the wizard create it for us. So let's get started. The first thing to do is enter the name and location of the album text file. The name can be anything you like, but seeing as I'm creating a Southern Rhodesian album, I'm going to use something appropriate like Southern Rhodesia. We also have to choose which folder to save the file in. It defaults to the last used location, which is currently Documents AlbumEasy Examples. I'm going to change it to just Documents AlbumEasy by clicking the Browse button. Oops, Browse. There we are, Documents AlbumEasy. Next we have to set up the album parameters. First, an album title. This is optional, but if it is included, be placed at the top of every page in the album. Next, the page size. We can use standard A4 European or letter for North America or custom. We can choose inches or millimeters. For example, choose custom and have a page 10 by 16. assuming your printer can handle that. Instead, we're going to just stick to letter for this exercise. 8.5 by 11. Page margins, the space between the edge of the page and the border. It defaults to 25 on the left, 12 on the right, and 15 at the top and bottom. The left margin is wider in case you want to punch the page. If one is going to place pages back to back, one would probably want the right margin wider on even pages, which is what mirror on even pages does. Margins can be easily changed. For example, I'm going to make the left margin 12 millimeters on this page as well. We can choose a border for the page. For example, triple border, double border, single thick line, single thin line, or none if we prefer. I'm going to leave a triple border. If the border you want is not listed, choose any. It can easily be changed at a later stage. You can also choose to include sample stamp boxes and sample text on your album page. We're going to do so for this exercise. Once we've filled all that in, it's time to move on. Next. A summary of the album is displayed. Title, Southern Rhodesia, page size 8.5 by 11, border styles triple, margins left, right, top, bottom, 12, 12, 15, 15, mirrored, yes. In this case it doesn't really matter either way, as the left and right margins are the same. We're going to create example stamp boxes, and we're going to create example text, and our output file is going to be in Documents, AlbumEasy, Southern Rhodesia.txt. We click Finish, and your new album has been created. Read the status: created album file, Documents, AlbumEasy, Southern Rhodesia.txt. Press the Generate button to create the album. Let's see what our new album looks like. Let's press Generate. The status is generating the album, successfully created, Southern Rhodesia.pdf. If we press View PDF, our new album is displayed, ready for us to customize. Triple border we chose, narrow 12 millimeter margins on the left and right, slightly wider margins on the top and bottom. Southern Rhodesia title on every page, some sample text was included, which we can later modify, and some sample stamp boxes were included. Now it is time for us to get to grips with the colored text in the edit window. Initially this may look rather intimidating, but once one has the hang of it and learned a few basic commands, it is not too bad, and creating an album is largely a matter of copy and paste. First thing to note is that text that starts with a hash or pound character is ignored by AlbumEasy. This is just commentary for the user. Lines such as these. For convenience, the built-in editor displays this comment text in green. The color can be changed in the configuration if the user prefers a different color. Deleting comment text will have no effect on the generated album. To reduce clutter while explaining, I'm going to delete much of this comment text. It's also worth noting that all measurements used in an album file are in millimeters, except for font size, which are measured in points. So, for example, the album page size is set here to 215.9 by 279.4 millimeters. This is the equivalent of 8.5 by 11 inches, which is what we set the page to. Note also that we have let comments do not necessarily have to start the beginning of line. These are comments at the end of each of these lines. Of course, they are optional. Now that we've deleted some of the comments, the whole file is visible in the edit window, easier for us to walk through. The first few lines of the text file contain commands that affect the whole album. These are only required once, whether the album has 1 or 100 pages. Some commands, such as the page size and page margins, are mandatory. Others, like the border and title, are optional. The page size, as we mentioned before, sets the size of the page being produced. The page margins command defines the left, right, top and bottom margins. The album pages margins E command does the exact same thing for even numbered pages. This is optional and not necessary if the margins are not being mirrored on the even number pages. The album pages border command defines the border on the page. In this case, we have a triple line border. The album pages spacing command defines the default spacing between horizontal and vertical elements on the page. We will discuss this in further detail in the tutorial. Now, album pages title command adds the title to the top of each page. As said before, this is optional. Going back to the PDF, we can see the current border is set to a triple line border. I'm now going to change it. Currently it consists of a thick 0.5mm inner line and two 0.1mm outer lines. This command defines the page border. The parameters define what the border looks like. To give these values some meaning, we can look them up in Help. To view Help, we simply click on the Help button on the top right of the main window. The Help window consists of two tabs, Contents and Index. Contents lists all the topics, help topics. Some of them have to be opened up. For example, here are all the commands. They've been grouped by type, so these commands are all commands that apply to albums, to the whole album. These are commands that apply to stamped boxes. Or you can scroll through keywords in the index, or if we're looking for something specific, we can find it. In this case, we want to change the border, so we are looking up the border command. The album pages border, so we type BORD, and we see there's album pages border. We click on it and it takes us directly to the album pages border command. This is an optional command to place a single, double or triple line border around the page. This is placed just inside the page margins. It takes 4 parameters: outer, inner 1, inner 2, and spacing. These parameters are all specified in millimeters. The first is the thickness of the outer line, the thickness of the middle line, the thickness of the inner line, and the spacing in millimeters between the lines. Let's switch back to our text file. So, for example, to change our triple line border to a double line border with a thick inner line, with a thick outer line, change it from 0.1 millimeters to 0.5 millimeters. Change the second line to 0.1 millimeters, and set the third line to 0 to disable it. 0 width. Keep our spacing at 1 millimeter between the lines. If we now generate and view the page, notice how I'm prompted to save the changes I've just made. Would you like to save your changes? Yes. If we now view the PDF, the status has been updated. If we now view the PDF, we can see that the border has changed to a thick outer line followed by a thin inner line. The remainder of this text file, these next few lines, define a page. The page start commands indicates the start of a page. Page text center adds text to the page centered between the margins. Row start fs is one of 3 different row start commands for indicating the beginning of a row of stamps. And stamp add adds a stamp box to the page. Here we have the page text center command, which places some sample text centered on the page. Here is the first stamp added in the first row of stamps. It has the word example inside the box. The number one centered under the stamp. Example with the number 1 centered under it. Here is the first stamp in the second row. It also has the word example inside the box and has a number 5 centered under the stamp. Second row of stamps, example with a 5 underneath. To create my Southern Rhodesia album, I'm first going to delete all but one of the stamps. Leave the row start and we get rid of all of those. Generate, first saving our text file, and view the PDF. We now have a single stamp. Going back to our text file, I'm going to change the text to describe the stamps we're adding. I'm going to replace the words some sample text centered with first April 1924 \n, we'll explain in a minute, King George V definitive issue. The backslash and lowercase n indicates to AlbumEasy that we want to start a new line. The text will be split and printed on 2 lines. 1st of April 1924 on the one line and George V definitive on this next line. Generate, save, generate, save it first, view, 1st April 1924 King George V definitive issue. Looking at this, I think I would prefer a little more space between the 1st of April 1924 and the King George V definitive issue lines of text. One way of doing this would be to add a second \n. Although not necessary for easier reading, I'm adding a space between the 2 \n. Generate, saving first, view it, and you can see we got the larger amount of space between the 2 lines of text. Now to add some stamp boxes. We already have one stamp box on the page, the wrong size of course. The stamps we want to add are actually 21 by 24 millimeters. But I prefer 2 millimeter border all around between the stamp and the frame, so I'm going to make my boxes 25 by 29 millimeters. 25 by 29. The first stamp in the series is the Halfpenny Blue Green. Let's type it in. Halfpenny. Again, insert a backslash N to put the denomination and color on two separate lines. Blue, green. I would like to place the Stanley Gibbons number under each stamp, centered underneath, so I'm placing it in the middle box. SG1. Generate and view. And there we have our stamp box, Halfpenny Blue Green SG1. This set of stamps consists of 15 stamps. The built-in text editor, in common with many other text editors, has the ability to easily duplicate a line. Place the cursor on the line of text and then press Ctrl D to duplicate it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We now have 15 stamps. You can see what it looks like. Generate and view. Zoom in and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamps fitting across, and the rest disappear off the end of the page. No problem, all we need to do is add some row start commands. We can copy and paste the existing row start command, row start fs, over there. I'm using the standard Ctrl-C key combination to copy, but you can, if you prefer, use the right-click menu and select copy from the pop-up menu. We have seen that we can fit 6 stamps across the page, but for aesthetic reasons I'm going to first try with 3 across. So 1, 2, 3. Insert a blank line and paste in a row start command. Let's see what that looks like. Generate, view, and there's our first row of 3 stamps. Now I'm going to add a few more rows. A group of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another group of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, that's 3. And maybe a group of 3. Let's see what that looks like. Generate, save, view PDF, and there's our page of stamps. The whole set placed in only a few minutes. All that's left to do is to change the text on each stamp. Actually, this is often the most time-consuming part of creating a page. Firstly, second stamp is a 1 penny rose, and this is SG2. Third stamp is also 1 penny rose, it is a coil stamp which is perf 12.5, so I'm adding another backslash in for a new line and P12 off, and this is SG2C. Generate, yes, new PDF, zoom in, there we have it. Halfpenny blue green, 1 penny rose, 1 penny rose, perf 12.5, SG1, SG2, SG2C. Moving on, the next stamp is 1 1/2 Mr. Brown. And this is SG3. I'm going to line up this, it's completely unnecessary, but I make it what makes it easier to read. I'm just going to line up rows of them that I've changed. Generate, save your changes, view PDF, and there we have the 1 1/2 penny Mr. Brown, or Mr. SG3. That's it. We have just created our first page, our first album page on our very first album. Of course, we still need to enter the other values, but I'll leave that for now. Once complete, I decide to share the album with a friend who uses A4 pages. All you need to do is change the size of the page from 215.9 by 279.4 to 210 by 297. Generate, save first, view PDF, and here we have the page ready to print on A4 paper. Simple as that. In this introduction, I have only just touched on the capabilities of AlbumEasy. To further understand what the program can do, I urge you to explore the provided examples. These, along with the help system, will hopefully provide you with all the necessary tools for creating your own custom albums. Please feel free to contact me via the AlbumEasy website, www.stampweb.com, if you have any questions.